One fan base, one city, one team brings us all together. The Cleveland Browns. If you're a Browns fan, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Down with the Browns.
And welcome back to another episode of Down with the Browns, baby. How we feeling tonight, boys?
I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm feeling like 10 wins. That's how I'm feeling.
10
Heck
10 wins. How about the Brownies? How about them, baby? Are you guys just as electrified as me? Because I'm not feeling the energy from you guys here tonight. I need some energy. Are you guys as hyped as me?
Let's go. Let's go.
I was waiting on Dave to try something out there before I actually did something because I didn't want to because I'm right next to Christian. I didn't want to get in your way there.
Crazy.
So yeah,
Get all crazy. It don't matter.
Dude, I'm just so proud of him. I'm just so proud of him. I think if there's any word that I would have to use to describe how I feel about the Cleveland Browns, the word that I would use the most would be just proud.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard not to be proud of all these guys. I mean, 10-5 with all the injuries this team has accrued over the last 16 weeks, even losing our kicker, our punter.
We haven't lost a punter yet.
Did you see the tweet that Grant Puskar put out?
No.
He said Thursday the Browns will enter the game without their starting QB1, starting
I did see that.
starting, blah, 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 all these number ones that are out. Just boom, 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 boom. It's just crazy. It is just
for sure.
crazy. And we need this W Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But before we get into the actual episode of the podcast, we do have some special guests hopping in later on in the episode. We got Noah Weiskopf, Browns with Noah. He is back. Going to make his appearance on Down with the Browns here tonight. We've got some great guests popping in later as well. They will be named when they join in to ask us some questions. So pretty hyped about that.
Mm-hmm.
But getting into this episode, how about the Browns? Listen, Joe Flacco has got me on a different level. He's got me wanting to be cool. And I don't know if you guys remember about last year, early on, Down with the Browns. If you remember, I was always wearing the Pit Vipers. They're back, baby.
They're back.
They're back.
There you go, dude.
I was there when you lost those, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. Sad day, sad weekend.
Yeah,
we were looking everywhere for those things.
I about cried.
Yeah.
But Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the talk of the game. That's the talk of the league right now.
It is.
Amari Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Amari Cooper just went out there in Texas, just dropped a big deuce
Yep.
right on the Texans.
Yep.
Just pooped right on their logo.
Yep.
Smeared it in, made them lick it, just went off.
Yep.
Historic numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did he become the first receiver to make back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, he broke the single-season receiving yard record set by Joshua Gordon about 10 years ago.
Yep.
With 265 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And I think he could have gotten so much more if we hadn't arrested the starters late in the game. If we'd have played starters full, if that had been a C.J. Stroud type game with the Texans and it would have been neck to neck in the fourth quarter, he would have easily have gotten 300 and would have probably broken even more records at that point. So you talk about a pretty good connection that we've established with these two guys that's going to keep going on for weeks into the regular season and hopefully into the playoffs.
Yes, for sure. What about you, Dave?
Oh, it was a education that Amari Cooper put on display.
Yep.
Some of those routes, including that quick slant to pick up a monster first down conversion toward the end of that game, to where he just absolutely put on a clinic. The way he came off the line, faked like it was a run play, put his left foot in the ground, exploded into that slant, and was wide open where Flacco just pitched him the ball to convert on that play. Was It was such a small blip on the radar of that stat sheet, but it was really, if you really go look at it, as probably his best route run
Yes.
was that little stick.
And
That was crazy.
that game was just something. I mean, just the Browns said Merry Christmas to all Browns fans across the nation, across the world, into the other planets of the universe. They said
yeah.
Merry Christmas to you guys, because at the beginning of the fourth quarter, or sometime in the fourth quarter, we went up 36-7.
Yep.
Going into the fourth quarter.
Without a kicker. Without a kicker.
Without a kicker. The Browns had outgained them 400 yards to 100 going into the fourth quarter.
Going into the fourth. Yep.
That's absolutely insane.
Yep.
We were beating them so bad. We had backups go in. Like, this is a college game. Like, a Power 5 school is playing an FCS school.
Yep.
Like, we were beating them that bad.
We were.
Yep.
We were. Which we did see the impact that CJ Stroud makes on Houston. We can't deny that. If CJ Stroud plays alone, that game is entirely different. But Christian was saying on the Sunday preview, if we can get some pressure on Case, it's going to be a long game for him. And he was right. I mean, our defensive line was in the backfield on so many plays, which you got to, of course, give Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper the credit. But that defensive line together as a unit, how many times have we said Myles Garrett needs his help? Myles Garrett needs his help. But from left to right, that entire defensive line showed up and helped out, and it paid. And hopefully they've learned that when they work together as a unit and Myles isn't carrying the load by himself, that defense has even more potential.
Yeah. A little stat breakdown from this game on Sunday. Joseph, the GOAT Flacco, had 368 yards, 3 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions.
Yep.
Jerome Ford, 15 carries, 25 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yep.
Amari Cooper.
Yep.
11 catches, 265 yards, 2 touchdown receptions. Going to the defensive side of the ball, Sion Takitaki led the team in tackles with 7. Myles Garrett had 3 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. Zadarius Smith had a game, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, and I think 3 tackles total.
Yeah, monster game for him.
JOK also went off with the interception, 6 tackles. Deron Harmon, how about that pickup?
Yeah.
3 tackles and a pick.
Yep. Talk about a very, very, very good team effort overall. You know, like I said, there's more than just Flacco and Cooper, but you've got the defensive line. And Zadarius probably had his best game this year. Do you think so too, guys? I think he did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, most effective game. We rarely ever heard Myles Garrett's name Sunday, and it still had a good effect for the defensive line without Myles Garrett. I just can't get over how good they played from left to right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I mean, I think Myles could still be hurt or something's going on with Myles right now, but he did. He was so close on so many though, so it's hard to say. But Zadarius sure picked up the flag and kept stepping, and brought the heat from the other side, and we needed that. And I'll tell you, one of the things I noticed about the Flacco game is it was so impressive. And even those picks were garbage picks. You know, the first pick was at the end of the half when we didn't have a kicker, so they had to go for it. It was kind of a garbage pick in the end zone. It didn't even really count. So not only did he show out, dropping dime after dime after dime, including that touchdown strike to Njoku, which was a laser beam.
Yes.
On his hands. You didn't see the Flacco interception where we were all like, ooh, man, that was not a good pick. Like, what was he looking at? Yeah. We didn't have that in that game. So that tells you that Joe is evolving. Yeah. He's cleaning up those decisions. And, we couldn't be in a better spot right now with the injuries that we have. And it's just so fun to watch.
Yep, we caught lightning in the bottle, as the reference usually is. When that kicker went down, when Dustin Hopkins went down, I thought this is not going to be good, because who knew what the Texans were going to do at that moment? But we just kept firing on our missiles, scoring points, getting catch after catch after catch. As much as we were passing the ball in that game, I thought eventually there's going to be a pick six, there's going to be an awful interception, something bad is going to happen. And it didn't. It really didn't until we put the starters away. So,
yep. And then it unraveled real quick, but they got back
kidding.
in there. So
yeah, straight up domination. But to your point, Jakey, that you mentioned about Zadarius Smith having his best game.
Yep.
I know Myles Garrett hasn't been as dominant as we were used to in the first half of the season, leading the league in sacks.
Right.
Just wrecking force, winning us games.
Yeah.
But since this has happened, like since he's not been putting up the stat numbers that we were accustomed to, Zadarius is him and Okoronkwo have been stepping up.
Yeah.
And like you said, Zadarius had one of his best games. His defensive grade on PFF was 92.3 or 92.2.
That's killer. What was you going to say, Dave?
Can we talk about Okoronkwo for a second?
A dog
back in the building.
Dog.
What a dog, dude. Gets a second opinion and is like, yeah, I might actually get back out there and play.
That is a huge deal. He could have easily just sat out and be like, hey, I'm just going to wait till playoffs. But, he's going to be playing Thursday night in probably the most important home game in expansion history. I can't think of a home game that's going to be more important than this Thursday.
Heck yeah, Austin. Let's go. So he's going to the game. Go Dogs. Go Dogs.
I'll be there, Austin.
Yes, sir. It's going to be a good game Thursday.
Yep.
But yeah, the defense that was the first defensive game on the road that we were just like, wow, this defense has shown up. I guess because this team has been big on listening to the critics. I've noticed that, like, they'll have like a thing like before the game or during the week going into the game, you'll hear like this notion of something like, the defense isn't showing up, the run game isn't good or something like that. And then in that next game, they just shut everybody up with that. Like this week going into this Texans game is the defense going to show up on the road? Is the defense going to show up on the road? They showed up.
Finally.
They showed up and acted like it was a home game.
Yep. And you could tell Schwartz was pissed, though, when that second team was giving up them points, dude. He was not happy with that.
Go Browns.
Yeah, he was not happy indeed.
Because he finally had his road victory domination, on the defensive side of the ball, and they just slipped it out.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it was just awesome to watch. It's just like we finally arrived. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this or if you guys keep up with like Big Cat on Twitter, but he always releases these things each week, and it's the computer generated like spectrum of stats and stuff. And like in it says Super Bowl contenders. I don't remember the other three teams that are in it, but he has the Browns in it, and then he has in elite tier Joe Flacco.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
I just can't get over it.
I don't think that's an overreaction. That is 100% fair.
Did you see that tweet I put out with that Rich Eisen clip?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I watched the whole thing.
He's like, Flacco's going to get MVP votes, which is crazy. But
he actually might get them.
I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch with the MVP votes.
But right, but here, let me ask you this, though, Jake. If he balls out the last two games, so he has, 8 solid games of resume, is it possible he gets 1 or 2 MVP votes?
1 or 2. I will give you 1 or 2. I feel like you got a few quarterbacks that are at the top of the list. And, of course, Tyreek Hill, who I feel like right now, Tyreek Hill is my pick for MVP. If the season ended today, he should win it. I don't feel like you should just give it to a quarterback just because. He's definitely deserving of that award. But back to Cleveland.
Yeah. Now imagine. Hypothetically, I know the chances of us actually going to get the number 1 spot in the playoff season is pretty much out of the window now. But could you imagine? Let's just say hypothetically the Ravens lose yesterday, and we somehow creep into that 1 seed. Joe Flacco is definitely getting a lot of MVP votes.
If we creep into the 1 seed, absolutely. And technically there is a chance. Right now it's 1%. The chances of us getting a home field advantage, the number 1 overall seed, is 1%. What has to happen, of course, is we got to win the last 2. The Ravens have to lose the last 2, and the Dolphins have to lose to Buffalo. If those things happen, we get the number 1. but it is pretty far-fetched, as Christian said, and I agree.
So we got a comment, a
Yes,
question from Cody Green. It says, do you think
Oh
that
my
Joe Burrow
gosh.
will lead you guys to the playoffs? I think the only thing Joe Burrow is leading right now is his dog down the road.
Come
Because
on,
the
you didn't have
Bengals
to do that.
Yeah, that's the only thing he's leading because they're in the basement. He might be actually cleaning up mouse traps from the basement.
Come on, man. You got to give the guy his credit, Ever since he's been injured, he's been sitting in on defensive team meetings and stuff, doing things that he doesn't have to do. He's still doing it.
Yeah,
He better be.
From
He's
the bottom.
highest paid player in the history of the NFL. So.
From the bottom,
Man.
in the basement. You got to rag them because they've ragged us for years.
They have ragged us for years.
Yeah, they had a fluke Super Bowl appearance. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, back to the Browns. Just what was something from that game that you guys noticed that was just like, okay, we might be able to make a run in the playoffs?
You first, Dave.
I mean, I'll state the obvious. The only reason that I feel like we might be able to make a run in the playoffs is because of Joe Flacco. I mean, let's be honest. If we don't have Joe Flacco, we're hoping to make it into the playoffs, and we're okay getting blown out 36-3 in the first playoff game. But now with Joe Flacco, we can go blow to blow, and with our defense. When it's there and it shows up, we can beat anybody on any given Sunday with that defense. So we just need somebody that can move the ball and get the ball down the field, and Joe Flacco's that guy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Jake?
I agree with you, Dave. Joe Flacco is, of course, he's the main reason we've done what we've done. And of course, if you guys haven't looked up lately, DTR is out for the season
reserve.
with a hip injury, and PJ Walker will be the number 2 in a worst case scenario situation. But truthfully, Joe Flacco is the number 1 reason. That the defense, of course, is the number 2 reasons. I'll just go ahead and give that answer so that way I'm not just hanging off the coattails of Dave. The defense can play on the road. They can play on the road. And don't forget, we get the entire – well, not the entire defense, but the majority of our defense comes back the first week of the playoffs. So even if we don't have the full effect of the pass game, we can still hold opponents to less than – 17, 14, 10 points.
Which is what you need to do to win in the playoffs right there. If you can do that, you can give yourself a chance to win in the playoffs.
100%. What about you, Christian?
Yeah, I'll just coattail off the both of you because, I mean, the Jims and the Joes. I think that's the way we're going to win. Jim Schwartz, Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
The Jims and the Joes.
Can I add a fourth one?
Let's hear it.
If Dustin Hopkins does return for the playoffs, or before the playoffs, does he pull an Evan McPherson from 2 years ago?
No, because I think we're going to be beating teams pretty handily.
I wouldn't go that far just yet.
All I'm saying is we've beat.
Christian is unhinged.
No, I'm kidding. I don't think we'll beat teams that bad, but I think that we'll be more.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have to rely on the kicker to win us games. If that makes sense.
That's a better way of saying it.
Maybe one or two. If we can win one playoff game, I'm ecstatic. Like I am hyped because that would make me so happy knowing that we've literally got a Pro Bowl team on IR right now, and we still win 11, 12 games. At minimum 10 games in a year,
right? With
a playoff berth. If we win one playoff game, I'm going to streak down the road.
I'm not going to do that, but I'll be pretty happy.
Streaking down the road.
Yeah, I mean,
Jake, I'm not going to do that. But.
I mean, I'm pretty content already with what we've done. We've accomplished more than what people said we would. When Deshaun went down, there were people on national media outlets saying the season is over. The season is over. The season is over. And it's not over. I mean, so that alone says we've accomplished more than what people expected. And even if I've even told Christian, even if we just lay an egg in the first round of the playoffs, I'm not going to get frustrated because we have no right to be frustrated this year. This is my favorite regular season as a Browns fan ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
And, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter mention I mean, what Baker Mayfield's doing down there in Tampa is he's been pretty good down there. I'll give him his prop. I'll give him his props. I'll give him his flowers. But
they're still 500.
Had he been here, I don't think we're in the situation we're in right now. And also, if he was here, he would be healthy, meaning we would have missed out on the Joe Flacco mania, Flacco fever running wild in the streets of Cleveland and throughout the United States.
Yeah.
Why would we want to miss that?
Yep, that is true. That is true.
So, yeah. Go Browns.
It's on fire, dude. It really is. Everywhere you look, YouTube, Twitter, wherever, everybody is talking about Joe Flacco with the Browns, and good for him, man. Good for him.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt you guys, but we just had somebody drop in. It is the greatest, the most historic sports news influencer across the world, across the media, in the outer space realm. It's Noah Weiskopf. What's up, brother?
What's going on? How are you guys?
We're just living the dream.
Yeah, man.
What you been into?
Busy.
Make that too.
I feel you. So Noah, talking about the Browns game, big win on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing that really stood out to you in this game on Sunday?
Gosh, I mean, how could it not be Amari Cooper? I mean, you knew the dude could make plays, but man, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was the chemistry that Joe Flacco has with Amari, and in such a short amount of time, for them to be able to put some of those throws like that in stride. I mean, there were so many big time throws, but the one that stands out to me was, I think it was on fourth down, maybe it was third down, where he was, scrambling outside the pocket a little bit, and he off balance throw and the toe tap on the outside. I mean, it was incredible to see. It really was. So I think that was probably the biggest thing that stuck out to me, was their connection and how quickly they've been able to develop that. And
absolutely,
the trust that they have in each other.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed about Joe Flacco is like, he isn't scared to just throw the ball in triple coverage, double coverage. It don't matter if he thinks his guy can make a play.
Yep,
he's gonna put it there.
Yep.
And obviously that could come back to bite him at some point as well. I know that he's had a lot of interceptions. I know the Browns are trying to cut that down a little bit. But some of those throws you got to live with. If he thinks that he has Marquise Goodwin over the top and he underthrows him a little bit, I mean, that's just stuff that you're gonna have to live with, and you're gonna take that risk reward type of situation. So, but the Browns are working to clean some of the turnovers up, especially the ones where guys are running the wrong routes and stuff like that. That needs to be fixed. But other than that, I think that his ability to take shots without really caring is important.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah,
well said.
Sure. And I don't know, man. Just Joe Flacco just gets me so hyped. So I got a question for you, Noah.
Yeah.
Do you see Joe Flacco returning in the orange and brown next season?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. Obviously, the Browns would be interested in having him around as a backup. But to me, there's really no scenario in where the Browns aren't starting Deshaun Watson next year. And I know Joe Flacco would love to remain in the NFL. So after this season, he's probably looking at maybe even a bridge quarterback type job, somewhere where he can, sort of compete for a starting job. So I'd imagine he'd take a job like that. I don't think he's not going to owe anything to Cleveland by having to stay, anything like that. So, I would be surprised, but I think there's going to be interest from the Browns. And if Joe Flacco wants to come back, I think there's going to be that spot for him.
Yeah, for sure. Do any of you guys have any questions for Noah?
I don't necessarily have a question. I just agree with everything he says. That 4th and 8 Cooper catch there in the game was just absolutely phenomenal. Honestly, at that point, when it was 4th and 8 and I thought he's going to get sacked, I was like, it's not the end of the world. And then he just launches it in the air and Cooper barely catches it and puts 2 toes. It wasn't even 2
Unbelievable.
feet. It was 2 big toes and still counted as a catch. That was almost more incredible than the Elijah Moore butt catch. I mean,
one cheek.
Yeah, super impressive stuff.
But yeah, so on our newest segment of this show, we are bringing in some people to ask us some questions. So questions from the fans. And first up, we've got Roger first.
Come on, Rod. Come on, Rod.
Boys, thank you for having me again. First of all, Bona Natalia, Bona Vascana. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas to you from me. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back. I want to tell you, Christian, this is 2 times. One more time, you got to add me to the 53. You can't keep on
There you go. Yeah.
the practice squad.
He's
all right?
out of options.
Yeah.
He's out of
All right,
options.
I'm
Well, with
out
all
of
the
options
injuries,
after
I might
this one.
add you.
All right.
So, Roger, what is that question?
Question for you guys.
Yeah.
Man, I there's so many went through my head today, and this is something that all right. I was listening to the radio today and talking about Jerome Ford. All right, is Jerome Ford the problem in the run game, or is the Bearcat a victim of the offensive line and a couple other things going on? Is it due to the patchwork, next man up line, and the coaching that's really emphasizing protecting Joe Flacco right now when they're game planning, and it's a priority over run blocking and the run game? So, what is it? Is it Jerome Ford, or is it just everything combined?
Can I go?
Yeah, you got this.
I think the issue with the run game isn't necessarily Ford, although he does play a certain role in it. If you had, of course, we hate to say this, but if you had Nick Chubb, this run game would not be suffering at all, even with the line that we currently have. Christian and I were going into this a little bit. I feel like personally, when you had DTR, when you had PJ Walker, when you had Deshaun, they are faster quarterbacks. So they were getting the football to the running back a lot quicker than what Joe Flacco is typically doing. Also, in conjunction with that, I feel like the line does bear some blame. So to answer the question, I feel like it's reaction time from quarterback to running back and the line. So far on PFF, Garen Christian is ranked 80th out of 84 tackles. James Hudson is ranked 81st out of 84 tackles. So the line is bearing some of the blame as well. So it is a combination of a few things. But to add on to that, this Thursday is the perfect time to get the running game going. Right now, as far as the Jets' defensive stats go, they're second in passing yards allowed in the league right now. They're second in leading passing defense. They are 24th in run defense, allowing 126.2 rushing yards a game. So if we want to get that run game back going, this Thursday is the day to do it.
Heck yeah. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, with the run game, I think the Browns are coming into a pretty dangerous spot with that, because up until this point, I think a lot of the success we've been able to have off of our play action game is because we have been able to run the ball in the past. And that was a valid threat for defenses to game plan against. However, I think that two to 3 weeks in now, I think teams are starting to figure it out that we can't run the ball like we could before. So this is going to be a good game, like you just said, Jake, with, the second best pass defense in the league. And one of the worst run defenses. You would think that this would be a game that Stefanski would like to go ahead and flex his muscle a little bit in that run game to be able to still have that as a potential down the road to where teams have to think about it. Because if they lay an egg in the run game this game, that's 3 in a row. Teams are not going to respect that run game, and they're going to start game planning. Zachary, what's up, man?
What's up, Zach?
What up? They're going to start
The
game planning
return
differently. So that's my opinion on it.
And I feel like we need to bring in Pierre Strong a little more as well. I think he needs to be incorporated just a hair, not like all the time, but, just a little here and there. Do we want to let Noah answer this as well, Christian?
Yeah, Noah.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I think that it's probably mainly the offensive line. When you're down to your 4th and 5th string tackles, it's really hard to get a push. I think that it also just goes to show you how much Nick Chubb, how impressive he really is. We all talk about how he was still the running back. Even with this line, he'd be able to make it work. And I think that just sort of shows you how elite he really is amongst the top running backs. So, I don't think it's anything against Jerome Ford. I think that he has the breakaway speed. I know Pierre Strong has some breakaway speed as well that a lot of people want to see a little bit more. But yeah, I agree that they need to get the running game going before, the playoffs, before it really matters. So if they're able to get it going this Thursday, great. But, I think that honestly last Sunday was their best opportunity to get it going. You're up big. The Texans were down at that point, their top 2 defensive ends. They're a great pass rushing team, struggle very much so against the run. And they're down their 2 ends. I think that was a game where you need to get a push. You need to start running the ball. And they really weren't able to. So I don't really know at this point what their hopes are for the run game. Just keep pounding it, see if something breaks. They're never going to just go away from the run, because then that will eliminate their play action game.
Right.
But as long as they keep running it, I think that they'll be in good shape, and hopefully for them something will break off, or they'll find something that propels it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree there. It's just like I feel like when we start to have like Jerome Ford run out to the left or to the right, and like we have guards pulling or something, he'll like wait a second. Like I don't think he makes his decisions quick enough, and I think that's what kind of hurts him in a sense, because like you'll see the gap will open, and then he'll see it, and it's like a split second, just like how fast football speed is. And I guess he just doesn't read it as quick as he probably should. But I mean, he's still a decent back. Like I'm not gonna just poop on him, but it's just like I feel like he's just like delayed in getting that whole hit. Like up the middle, I feel like he does decent.
Yeah, good point. Anything you want to add to that, Dave?
Nope.
But yeah, in the last 4 games that Joe Flacco has played, of course, we're first in the passing game, but we have only averaged 67 rushing yards a game in those 4, and that is 31st in the league, only ahead of Jacksonville.
Yep.
So,
Zach,
I know you weren't in here when he asked the question, but I'll let Roger repeat that question real quick.
Yeah.
For Zach.
Just a short version. Is it Jerome Ford problem with the run game, or is it the offensive line and the patchwork offensive line and the concentration more on the passing game and protecting Joe Flacco right now?
As in, like, is that why it's struggling, or is that why?
Right. Is Jerome Ford? I heard on the radio today that I'm blaming Jerome Ford, basically. So,
well, you never know what those
piling on Jerome Ford.
Right. But I don't know. My opinion over the past few weeks, I haven't been here, but I've noticed a lot of just Jerome Ford being used in plays and in ways that he's just that's not his game. He's his prototypical build from a lot, especially because he hasn't put on as much like muscle and weight that like we thought he would with like, and be that Kareem Hunt who can run downhill through the tackles, through the guards, up the, just any of the gaps. And he's just kind of, I think he's cemented himself as one of those guys where he's going to be more of a Tony Pollard, who it's going to take some time for him to develop that understanding of going through the guards and picking your holes and really, forcing yourself through that. But that being said, it's tough. It's a tough predicament that we're in because, without Nick Chubb, who is kind of can do it all aside from being a deep threat, really. But it's tough because Kareem Hunt doesn't bring in that dynamic, break free, make 3 cuts and he's gone like type thing. And Jerome Ford, I don't think has matured enough yet as a back. And so personally, me, every time Pierre Strong gets it's a dive play or a stretch play or something to where it's just go between the he goes like he really understands you got to hit that hole hard and you got to really create that separation. And Jerome Ford, I think it's not that he's like can't do it, it's he doesn't see it. Like he misses a lot of those entries. Like when he likes to bump everything outside, and that's fine if it works, but let's face it, we're in a league now where linebackers are no longer 260 270 pounds. Like these guys are 220.
Dude, half the right ends are as fast as he is.
We're in a league where your safeties are 6'2", 6'3". Some of your DBs are 6 feet and running sub 4.4s, and your linebackers like JOK are 6'1", 6'1", and they're sideline to sideline. Devin White, those guys that can just run 4.4s.
4.5.
So they're catching you on the outsides.
Yeah.
So you kind of, it's a lose-lose situation. I do think the line is a problem. But listen, throw the ball. I don't care. You don't have to literally hand the ball off to run. Like you can.
That's what Flacco does for you.
Right. You can design these screens and these little, these delays and stuff like that to where it works. So listen, if it works, keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do think when we get, I'm going to be confident in saying is when we get to the playoffs.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
We are going to have to rely a little bit more on that run game and controlling the clock if we want
at least show it
to
early.
advance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on it. But
Yeah.
Roger, we appreciate you for stopping in and asking that great question. Thank you so much.
yes.
Hey guys, I want to thank you for having me. You made my partner, Andy and I partner, Ross, the sock boss. He's a Bearcat, and you made him happy by it's not all the blame on the young running back. He's growing. I think that his eyes, he'll start trusting his eyes a little more because with Joe Flacco's a master of play action, and the defense has to realize Jerome Ford he can house it. If he gets through that first wave, he can't house it. So they have to respect it. And Joe Flacco is so good at play action, they have no choice but to respect it. So, right now, like you said, let's just throw the football, protect Joe Flacco and throw the football. I want to thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
Good seeing you, Roger.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, go check out Dog Chug.
When's the Dog Chug on this week, Rod?
Tomorrow night we got Angry Browns fan that makes Victory Monday videos. Tomorrow night live, 10 p.m. on the Dog Chug.
Go tune in.
Yep.
Thanks, Roger.
All right.
Yeah, man.
All right,
you,
boys.
brother.
Good night.
Good night, brother.
And we actually have another guest coming in with a question.
Guest.
Yeah, we got two. Got two for this new segment. And
It's like
it
a real
is
pod.
James Ellifritz of the Orange and Brown Weekly and Guardians of Cleveland podcast of the Believeland Media. What is up, James?
What's up, man?
Hey guys, how you doing? Merry Christmas to everybody, and
Merry Christmas.
hope everybody's had a great holiday weekend. I know the Browns have did their part, and we're super excited about this Thursday. Usually, I don't care about Thursday night games until the Browns play. So,
Heck yeah.
let's get into it.
Welcome, James.
Yeah. So, James,
Appreciate it.
what is that question?
So I think the big question when you really think about the entire season to you guys is what changed the culture? Because we all see something different with this team. What changed the culture? I have my own answer, but I want to see what you guys think.
Noah, go first, man.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of different things. One thing that I sort of got over the last week or so was that I talked to somebody in the organization who has meaningful say over this kind of stuff. And I was told that this is the closest team he's ever been a part of. And I think that team chemistry is something that propels you to wins. And I had an extensive conversation it's a mixture of a lot of different things, but overall the point is that each player will truly take a bullet for another guy. Everyone has each other's back. And I think that just sort of mindset has really changed a lot. And I think that a lot of the credit there can even go to Jim Schwartz, obviously, for the defense. Has instilled the mindset. I think that it gets overlooked that one of the things Jim Schwartz said when he got to Cleveland was that he really wants the Browns to lead the league and a couple of things that have to do with defense on the field. But then he also mentioned swagger. He wants the defense to lead the league in swagger and passion for the game. So when you see these guys, Greg Newsome is a prime example, doing these celebrations after every incompletion, I think that alone is able to propel everyone else and get everyone else to perform better to everyone to a standard. And I think that you're seeing that, and you're seeing these guys gravitate toward a guy like Joe Flacco, who's only been there for a couple weeks. And I think that mindset has grown throughout the team, has grown throughout the organization. And you're seeing these wins on the field. You're seeing that as, that's a part of it. the mindset and the team chemistry and the tight knit bond that these guys have with each other.
Yeah, that
said.
was a killer answer.
Yeah.
Better than anything I could ever say.
Yeah, no kidding. For me too.
But one thing that I think's really changed the culture, is continuation, I would guess. Keeping the same guys that are in charge year in and year out for the last 4 seasons. I think keeping Stefanski, keeping Andrew Berry, letting them actually build the culture that they wanted to, because the culture that they were given was on the upbringing of the 0-16, 1-31 era right after that.
Yeah.
Right after the Hugh Jackson era. So we still had that kind of lingering in our minds, Kevin Stefanski comes in right off the rip playoffs. Then, the next year happens, da-da-da-da-da. But the way they continued to battle through all the adversity, keeping these guys in here, keep buying into the culture, because, a lot of the people we have, like our core pieces, are people we've drafted other than Watson. We drafted Njoku, we've drafted Miles, Chubb. Just our key pieces we've drafted, and the culture we're building and we have built is just great. I love it. I know Stefanski was getting a lot of hate going into the year and most of the way midway through the year, and he's starting to get a little more love from a lot of the fans that were hating on him. But the way he was able just to block out the noise from the outside, and just keeping it in the locker room, just be like, hey, this is us. Let's go out there and prove it for us.
Yeah.
Just keeping that team first mentality.
Yeah.
That's
what about you, Dave?
For me, it's a no-brainer. It's 100% Jim Schwartz. I think we've had a lot of these pieces in place for a long time, and we had most of that defense with Joe Woods last year, and we would all agree that defense this year versus last year is completely different.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
These athletes they're finely tuned machines, but they still need motivation. They still need – you can have the greatest player in the world, and if his mind is not right, he is going to be 50% of what he can be. I think Jim Schwartz gets 100% out of every one of these players. I think they have fun out there. One of the big things that he said early on was that we are going to celebrate our good plays. I don't care what the scoreboard is. If there's a great play made out there, I want to see you guys celebrating it. And that just leads to the mindset that they take it play by play. I think Jim Schwartz has set the tone for the culture change of this team. And I think the offense had to get on board. The defense kind of set that bar. And I think the offense had to come on board with it. And now I think as a whole unit, I think the team in general is just swag heavy, confidence, boosted. And Kevin Stefanski has really grown as a head coach and a play caller.
Absolutely.
And to his credit, I think he has really had a self-awareness with himself, and I think he has changed a few things about himself that infuriated Browns fans in the past. And we're not seeing those Kevin Stefanski play calls anymore that are just absolutely destructive. So Jim Schwartz is my answer, 100%. Culture change. What about you, Zach?
I think it's a couple things. I think Jim Schwartz is definitely part of it. Like Dave was saying, that's just, the attitude is there. But I also think that there was a key thing that I think a lot of people overlooked in the offseason coming into this season is we got rid of a lot of the guys that loved to talk and they didn't like to perform.
And John Johnson the third.
I didn't want to name names, but if you saw him in the Rams game, the whole thing was about him. It was him. I got an interception. I did this. We went. It's a team sport, and if you can't get along and understand that each and every one of these guys are brothers and they have to fight for each other, and when one goes down, the next guy's got to be there to step up. You could just see that was definitely missed within the Joe Woods era of our defense. This goes back as far as Demarius Randall. When we had him and it was just guys that they wanted the spotlight. And Myles Garrett is not a guy that really cares to have that spotlight on him personally. John Johnson's on Instagram 24/7. The dude blacked out his whole profile when he when the fans got a little rowdy with him. I mean, as much as I don't want to throw Baker under the bus, but if you can't handle it, get out of the kitchen. Like, that's just what it is. Like, if you're going to put yourself out there to talk and have criticism be, brought upon you, get out of the kitchen.
Right.
And I think that was a big stabilizer is getting rid of those guys that just, we don't need the distraction. And then lastly, I do think having two adults in the room in Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco have totally galvanized this, the understanding of this team that like guys like Miles and Denzel Ward and, these offensive linemen, they don't have to worry about being perfect, like at all times. They know that they have a quarterback, so it lets them relax and play what they're supposed to be playing and do what they're doing. And I think the scheme plays into it as well. The one thing I will say about Kevin Stefanski is I was so critical of him probably the first 9 weeks of his of this year, just because I felt like it was almost like he was trying not to lose instead of just playing to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's having a guy like Joe Flacco who throws still at 38 years old, one of the most beautiful deep balls I've ever seen in my life.
Fact.
And just being able to be like, okay, I know this guy's going to throw it. And if it's intercepted, it's intercepted, but at least it's far enough down the field to where it's a punt, So
Cooper's down there somewhere.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that is huge. So I think seeing the consistent, aspect of early on in the season, the defense said, we'll take over. And then now the offense is kind of pumping.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's changed everything. And it's only positive going forward. I think that when Deshaun comes back, and I think Joe Flacco should stay here for a couple, sign a year deal, 2-year deal as a backup, and just, because if he's we shouldn't make the same mistake we did with Jacoby Brissett. We really shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because if guy gets injured, we need to have a dude that we can rely on.
yeah.
But I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
For sure. Jake?
My answer is going to be pretty short. My answer is sort of a combination of Noah's and Zach's. But to start off, it didn't happen overnight. We've been fighting this uphill battle for 5 years. When we went 0-16 in the 2017 season, and from there it's been up and down. We win this game, we lose this game. This offseason we're hyped up and we get let down. This other offseason we're just kind of confused and we make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's been a process, and we're slowly getting rid of the distractions, like Zach said eloquently, and we're bringing in people that want to be in Cleveland. And to add on to that chemistry, we have players that not only want to be in Cleveland, we have players that want to play with each other.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Heck yeah. So, James, what is your answer for your question?
First of all, those are all great answers. I want to try to take it back a little bit further to, a Baker Mayfield that was here, that was brought in by a different regime. Stefanski inherited Mayfield on that roster. I think he tried to get the best out of him that he possibly could. And then Andrew Berry just kept continuing to add more players that fit what he's looking for and what he remembers from what he was trying to build in Philadelphia. But also then you got Stefanski when he was first hired. Or if you want to look at any NFL head coach, nobody brings in for their first year every assistant that they exactly want. It takes time to build up that team and to build up that chemistry and guys that just click for you. And if you look at what Joe Flacco has did and how he's clicked for Stefanski, he's a kid in a candy store, because I don't think he's had that kind of rapport with a quarterback and been able to comfortably get into that playbook and throw the ball like he wants to since Minnesota. And it's just been a blessing to watch. I've heard, people say about this is the best the offense has looked from a passing standpoint since Bernie Kosar. I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
It's just been really impressive what he's been able to do in a short amount of time. I know there was a lot of doubts. The offense has been set up to a Deshaun Watson style quarterback. Flacco has not cared, and Stefanski adjusted well, and the team has adjusted well. He's got the best out of Amari Cooper. He's got the best out of Njoku. Those guys are our playmakers. And I know they're battling with this running game right now but to me, the offensive line from a running standpoint is the equivalent of how we viewed DTR trying to get the passing game, or PJ Walker trying to get the passing game, where they were struggling so hard to try to get the best out of what their abilities were, and they just couldn't get the ball to the playmakers enough consistently. And that just goes to show what a veteran presence at the quarterback position can do for you, that has won a Super Bowl MVP. And we are absolutely fortunate, and I cannot wait to see how this story ends. And we just keep playing week to week, going 1-0. It's just a special time, especially you younger generation guys that haven't got to witness this. I was at Brown Stadium in 1987 when the Browns came back against the Jets in the playoffs. One of the first games I ever went to with my father, and it changed my life forever. So I'm hoping that Browns fans, all you younger guys, get a moment like that this playoff season to really tie you in and just galvanize your Browns fandom for the rest of your life.
For sure.
Heck yeah. James, thank you for joining in and asking us that. We appreciate you. Go follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
Let me check his at. It is the Fritz 303. So go follow him on there. 330. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah.
Yep. At the Fritz 330.
Yeah.
And then
at
Brown Orange Weekly WL or WKLY. We're looking to potentially do a Manning cast this Thursday for the Jets game. So check us out as part of Believe Land Media.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
Thanks for stopping in.
Thank you,
brother.
guys.
We appreciate you.
It's so great. I've been on Dog Chug with Roger. It's so great that pods, we can all work together and have a good time enjoying our favorite football team. So go Browns, and you guys take care. Have a happy
Go
day.
Browns.
Go Browns.
Take care, James.
See ya. Take care.
You too.
Oh, I cut him off a little bit. I'm sorry. But going on about the Browns, one thing I was just thinking about here, just sitting down, listening to all those great answers from everybody, was one thing I've noticed is the growth of Kevin Stefanski in this year, just how well he's just grown in this season.
Yeah.
And just, have you guys also seen that, like, the growth, like the offensive play calling, how he's managing the room, the locker room? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think you had to sit down. I'm sure. I mean, listen, we'll never know because no one's ever going to really openly sit here and be like, oh, yeah, this is what happened. But,
yeah,
I think after a while, he probably sat down and thought to himself, listen, like, I'm not getting Deshaun back this year. It's just not happening. So my offense that I wanted to totally open up with, it's just not going to work. I've tried it with PJ Walker, tried it with DT. It's just not working. Okay. So we got to figure something out here. And, the DTR game that he played where he played really well, that was the first time I saw him kind of change some things that I wasn't like accustomed to seeing all the time. Like it was a lot more, 2-3 step drops and balls out. Like it wasn't this like, let's wait for this play to develop and stuff like that. It's just get the ball out and move. And I think in all honesty, I think after that whole DTR Ravens game where the kid just was not, he was not ready. He was just thrown under the fire. I think that was also a wake up call too. It's just the dog days of the Browns season. Sometimes I think people just reevaluate certain things, and also not having his star running back and offensive line. You just gotta. It's like one of those things where they always say that like your failures are always make you stronger. And I think Kevin Stefanski had to see it and be like, okay, listen, I keep calling the same things. They're not working. I got to figure something out. And you finally got it. And then now we're seeing what his genius looks like. But I also think it's a little bit of like a smoke and, like a little bit of an illusion here is that it's working. Well, it's working, and there are certain plays that I have seen that I'm like, God, if that didn't work, we were screwed. Yeah. So, like, it is a matter of that, like, well, if it didn't work, then we would be totally talking about something different. But I think he really has kicked it up, and I think out of all the coaches, we've had over the many years, he's definitely the most eligible.
Zach,
for
let me ask you:
time.
would you extend him right now? If they said, "Hey, we got to make a decision on Kevin right now," would you extend him?
Well, I think he earns an extension regardless of this. I mean, like, I don't think, like, you have to.
Yeah.
Who else he going for? I mean, like, he
Right.
got the quarterback he wants. He got the guys that
Joe Woods.
he got.
Hey, coach.
He got his dudes, and he got the people that he wanted. And at that, you just kind of just have to sit there and be like, all right.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
My bad. Noah. So, Zach just mentioned like extending Stefanski. Do you think that happens like this offseason or before the playoff? Like, I mean, I know it's probably just a wild question to ask, but like, do you see the Stefanski extension happening sooner rather than later, or at all? Hopefully.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. Not in the too distant future. Definitely not before the season's over or anything. If anything, it'll happen in the off season. But I don't think there's any sort of a rush. That's sort of the vibe that I've gotten, because I've been sort of wondering the same question as to when that's going to happen. And the vibe I've gotten is there's no rush. I mean, he's not going anywhere. When they need to extend him, they're going to extend him. And, him putting himself into the coach of the year conversation basically this year, him and Dan Campbell. I mean, first of all, who would have thought it's the Browns coach and the Lions coach?
Very true.
But, it'll happen when it needs to happen. I don't think there's any sort of question with that.
Yeah, for sure. So I got another question for you, Noah. So do you think, you just mentioned it actually, do you think that with Kevin Stefanski being in that competition for coach of the year, do you see him like actually getting that, or what will it take for Stefanski to actually win coach of the year this year?
Yeah, I tend to think that Dan Campbell's going to win it. I think Detroit and Cleveland are in similar situations. I think a big part, it's a whole thing with these awards. MVP is mostly always a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
The most valuable player of the NFL might be a defensive end. It might be a Christian McCaffrey. It might be someone like that. But, those positions never tend to get it. I think that a big part of this is that Kevin Stefanski already won a coach of the year. I think that is, it's not his fault, but I think that that's going to, in the end, hurt his chances of winning another one. I think that giving it to a Dan Campbell, who won the NFC North, they already clinched it, and just how good they look on a week-to-week basis, I think that he's probably going to win it. I think that it would have helped if the Ravens lost against the Niners. I think that if the Browns were to somehow end up winning the division or somehow getting the 1 seed, which I know is still on the table. But, if the Browns are able to do one of those things, then maybe Kevin Stefanski is going to put his name and get a second one. But, I think that a division winning, forget the 4 quarterbacks. Obviously, that's super important. But I think a division winning Lions team that's going to be in the playoffs, is Dan Campbell's probably going to win that.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. A lot of people are saying Stefanski, and I'm not discrediting him by any means, but I feel like Dan Campbell has accomplished what no Lions coach has accomplished since 1993. So we would have to win the division. Even if we finish with the same record as Detroit, I'd say they would give it to Dan Campbell for sure.
Yeah. So
I agree.
So the thing that I agree with you guys. I do think that Dan Campbell will win it over, because like you said, your guys' points are correct.
Yeah.
But the one thing I could see, if you're just arguing for Stefanski, would be he's 10-5 as of right now in the toughest division in football.
Correct.
Like the basement of the AFC North is 8-7. 8-7 in other divisions would be running for the lead, like top of the division.
NFC South.
Yeah, NFC South. They would be winning the division right now.
Yep.
And the Bengals are 0-5 in our conference, and they're still in our division, and they're 8-7, and that's insane. And then all the injuries, the injury bug that's hit this team, and he's still coached through it, winning games against good teams. Like we beat the Niners with PJ Walker.
I don't think I'll ever.
When they were undefeated.
Peanut Butter and Jelly Walker won a game against the Niners That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And we've won 10 games with 4 different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the thing that would be most, brought up if they're arguing about it at that little
Right.
table.
If not for Dan Campbell, he wins it for sure. But the only reason he doesn't win it is because Dan Campbell does. That's really the whole bottom line, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But moving forward, we do have a big game on Thursday night. They're wearing the beautiful whiteout jerseys with the white helmet. Just absolutely gorgeous uniform combo. We'll just open this question up for anybody. What are some things to expect, some keys to winning that game on Thursday?
Go first, Dave.
Oh, man.
Oh, right off the rip,
Slapping
Dave. Let's
me
hear
right on
it.
the spot.
Let's hear it.
I mean, we have to run the ball. We have to run the ball effectively. Facing Trevor Siemian, there should be no reason why we can't ground out another gritty dub Thursday night, solidify our playoff spot. But I think probably the most important thing is to try and run the ball effectively, not just to beat the Jets, but to also set up our offense a little bit for the last game of the year, and then also our first playoff game. So.
Yep. How about you, Noah?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is playing the defense how you play at home. If they're able to play that kind of defense, I tend to think back to the game in Cleveland against Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett and sort of that environment of just completely shutting down a not so good offense. If you're able to stop a guy like Garrett Wilson, if you're able to slow down a Breece Hall, other than that, they have nothing. They pretty much have no offense. So you got to just play dominant. The defense needs to continue to play how they've been playing. And I think with that, Joe Flacco will be able to move the ball down the field, whether that's the run game or the pass game. And you just need to put some points on the board. I don't think it's too big of a challenge for the Browns.
What do you think wins it, Noah? You think if we put up 21, that's enough?
Oh, yeah. I genuinely think that if they put up 13, that should be close to enough.
Oh,
bam!
I would agree.
That's a good take.
Absolutely.
You look at the Browns. You look at this Browns defense, who have been, throughout the season struggling on the road. Right? Mm-hmm. They went to Houston. I know it was Case Keenum, but they went to Houston and more or less shut them out. You give them the 7 points on the kick return touchdown.
Yep.
And then by the time they scored their next points, the Browns defense was off the field. Their starters were off the field, and their backups were.
Yeah.
So you go on the road and shut out a team like that. There's no reason why you can't shut out a team on a Thursday night.
Yep,
for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Zach?
I think this is one of those games, just like it was. Funny enough, Kevin Stefanski's 2020 year, where it's kind of a trap game. So it's a Thursday night, coming off an emotional win on Sunday with 10 wins is big for the Browns. So I think as long as they keep their their locked in mindset and just make sure that they're focused on all three facets of the game. I think the biggest issue that I'm seeing is obviously not having our punter and our kicker.
Yeah.
And if we can't move the football, which if the Jets are playing good defense, because DJ Reed and Sauce have been up and down all year. I mean, they've been really good some games and really bad some games. Their pass rush is there. It's not what we're used to seeing with the Bengals or the Ravens or the Steelers. So I think we'll be okay for that. It's just coming down to if we can't capitalize on our drives, we're having that sluggish hangover from the Sunday.
Yeah.
How are we putting points on the board? Because are we trusting the new guys that we put up there? Are we are they going to be able to kick a 45-yard field goal? Right. And in, probably subpar weather. I mean, that's where I'm worried about, just because I don't think the defense is going to slow down. I think there's so much hunger. And I mean, just, seeing how invigorated they are just from the design I posted, and seeing Greg Newsome and Marty, who's Martin Emerson's cool, but he's been really awesome and engaging with a lot of those different types of things. But just seeing how they talk about each other, I don't think you're seeing that unless they just have a bad game. And I just think no one's stopping them. It's a matter of, can we put the ball in the end zone? and not have to worry about our field goal kickers, because I think that is a huge concern, going into Thursday.
Good point. I don't necessarily think this one's a trap game as compared to the 2020 game, because in the 2020 game we were missing a lot of key players due to all the COVID contacts, and it was at the very, very last second. It was like a bunch of players were missing at that moment, whereas we've gotten accustomed now to all of these injuries. We know who's going to be playing. We know what we're up against, and I honestly just don't see Trevor Siemian just lighting us up. I just don't. Now, if Zach Wilson plays, I mean, you never know which Zach Wilson get.
I would rather play Zach Wilson. I'd rather play Zach Wilson with Joe Flacco throwing with his left hand.
I wouldn't go that far.
Zach Wilson is dog food.
Which they did last week. I don't know who was the quarterback last week, but they did have a big lead on the Commanders, and the Commanders just came out of nowhere and almost pulled off the comeback. And I just don't see them trying to do that against Cleveland. I just don't.
Yeah. The only reason I say that is because, we're a young, with everything said, we are a young football team. I mean, we have to remember that, this is still a very young football team. And, sometimes you let up and guys that don't have the experience in these situations. So you never know.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So for this take, I'm putting back the shades on.
Oh, here we go.
They're back on, baby.
Good gracious.
So, Kevin Stefanski is always in his bag on Thursday Night Football. I don't know the record of him on Thursday Night Football, but I'm going to take it over any coach in the NFL. The dude is a dog on Thursday Night Football. Cannot be stopped after last year against the Steelers, Week 3. I just won't hate on that man. But honestly, going into this game, I think Joe Flacco is going to have another game, because I don't know what it is, but Stefanski in these primetime games, other than the Monday night game earlier in the year, I mean, he just calls an excellent ball game, and I'm just excited to see what he has drawn up for David Njoku, because I think this will be a David Njoku game. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think that we're going to have to see JOK continue that dominance he's had at the linebacker position. I think this is going to be another JOK game. The last time I said this, he had an excellent game. He pretty much was just all over the field. I think that I'm gonna call my shot right now here on Tuesday, December 26th, 2023. JOK is going to have 2 picks.
2 picks.
2 picks.
Or 2 forced fumbles.
2 turnovers. I'll change it.
2 turnovers. That's fair.
1 pick, 1 fumble recovery.
To answer Christian's question, Kevin Stefanski is undefeated on Thursday Night Football. His first year, they played the Bengals when Joe Burrow's rookie season. The second year, they beat the Broncos. And then last year, we beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I want to say all 3 of those games were at home, which, of course, this Thursday is also a home game.
In his bag. But yeah,
hey, dude, I don't care about the game or what happens. I mean, all I care about is that Zachary had Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson Jr.
Dude, how about that?
Out his picture this week, and that shit was fire, dude.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Martin Emerson hit me up after I did a jersey swap of him when he was drafted. And he followed me, DM'd me, and he's always been so interactive with the stuff that I've done. Like he's one of the few, and like I don't blame him. I don't expect those things from any of these guys. When I post them, I'm like, okay, if they retweet it, awesome. If not, I really don't care. Like if they take it,
sure.
But there are certain guys like Perrion Winfrey, although he's not with us, he was always super, engaging with me. Like he's always DMing me, like stuff like that, which I think is really cool to kind of be like a fan that does, makes these types of things, and to have them engage with you, I think is really cool. But I'm blessed, man. Can't argue with it, dude. It was definitely very cool to see a bunch of them just like the image. The problem with those is that like someone gets a whole, like I tweet them out and then everyone has them.
Yeah.
So like they're posted everywhere. So like I remember Mac was like DMing me on Instagram. He's just like, yo, just they posted this, and I was just like, dude, like, there's nothing I can do. Like, you know, I kind of expect it. You know, it's part of it, and you know, I have my logo on the top left. So like, if people really want to look it up, I'll look it up. You know, so
Yeah, man.
Great
Which, I
job, dude. What an honor.
And honestly, the way I look at it is like, I do a lot of commercial design stuff and branding on the side, or not on the side, but for my actual job. So this is a lot of my fun stuff. So all the stuff I make is not just for me, it's for everybody. So like, take it, use it, do whatever the hell you want with it. It doesn't bother me. I'm not getting any money from it. I just want, you know, people to have cool things and cool stuff. And obviously, being in a small market, we don't get all the really cool designs all the time. Like, you know, teams like in New York and LA and Chicago. So anytime I can help and contribute to that, and bringing Cleveland as like, hey, you know, there's some really good designers there and people that make some really cool stuff. You know, I'll do my part.
And you know your stuff's fire when you have people just stealing it.
Oh yeah,
and just posting it around, like, you know.
Yeah, I try to just listen, man.
Noah, did you see the picture?
Go ahead and just take it. You know, people can use whatever they want.
I don't think I saw it. I'll have to look.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing,
dude. It's
fire. DBs. It's really cool.
I should have added it. I was getting ready to, and then my iPad died because I always have my iPad running on the side.
You guys don't have to. I mean, listen, if you want to check it out, go for it. But other than that,
straight
it's
fire.
all fun.
Go check it out. Zach creates.
I just wanted to make mention of it, dude. It was beautiful.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate
it. But before we wrap this episode up, Noah, do you got any just Browns news going into this Thursday night game that we may have not touched on, or just any Browns news in general?
I don't think anything for right now. I think that they are headed into a game in which, you know, would be a huge win, right? You win the game, you go to the playoffs. I know there's a bunch of different scenarios in which they could lose and then still clinch the playoffs, but you know, you and this is the vibe around the team as well. You win the game, you win the playoffs, or you get into the playoffs. So that's the vibe, that's the mindset. You know, they win it, they earn it, they get in. I think you're probably looking at a playoff game in Jacksonville. I can't really envision a different scenario, and I think that's a very winnable game for them. I don't think that, you know, it's a whole different game. If you win the division, you're also getting a home game, which is great, but you're also going to have to face a different team. You know, you pick your poison. Would you rather play a home playoff game against the Bills and Josh Allen, or would you rather just go to Jacksonville and play Trevor Lawrence and the struggling Jaguars? So it's an interesting question.
Good point.
So either way, you're playing Josh Allen.
What'd you say?
So either way, you're playing Josh Allen.
That is true. But yeah, I think that, you know, the special team stuff is pretty interesting to see both guys go down. I thought there was a chance that Dustin Hopkins was placed on IR, but you know, luckily they think that it's going to be a week-to-week thing, and the hope is that, you know, he's back for the playoffs. He's not Thursday, and they're going to see how he gets through the extended bye or the mini bye week that they have after the Thursday night game that I know the players are really looking forward to, because, you know, those guys are not happy that their bye week was that early in the season. And now you're starting to see these, you know, back-to-back games, the Thursday night games. These players, you know, I know a lot of them are pushing for a second bye. And, you know, if they continue to make the season a little longer, I think you're going to see that second bye at some point. That's looking way ahead towards the future. But you know, I think their mindset's going in there, taking care of business, and you earn a chance to have a second season, as Kevin Stefanski likes to tell the team.
Yeah. And not only that, if we do clinch and keep the 5 and we can't advance, we essentially get 2 bye weeks, because I do not see us playing starters against Cincy in the last week if we clinch the 5 and can't advance.
I hope we do, just so we can just clinch the 5, because I mean, I don't know if there's a chance that we might not, even if with a win, I know we clinch the playoffs, but I don't know if we solidify the 5.
I think we do.
We do?
Do we, Noah? Do we solidify the 5 with the win or no?
I'm not positive on it. You'll have to double check, but if not, then I don't think there's any question. I think they're going to be playing their starters to face that AFC South team.
Yeah. But if we do clinch the 5 with the win, moving on to Cincy, I don't think we should be playing starters at all. So essentially, that's
See,
2 bye weeks in a sense.
I know this is just pure fandom talking right here, but I want us to play just so we can beat the Bengals, and the Bengals are 0-6 in division play, just so we can hold that over them.
Listen,
I just don't want to risk anything.
I don't care about a single thing of what these Bengals fans are saying.
Oh,
I don't care.
I don't need it. I just like
Any-
control, bro. I just like control.
I get, listen, and it's warranted. Okay, listen, we have been. I've seen people like, oh well, the Bengals have won blah 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 or X amount of playoff games since whatever, and the Browns have the most losses since when we return. And I'm thinking to myself like, that has been something that has been beaten just beating a dead horse. Like people keep saying the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time to when to take our good old buddy boys line, awaken the giant that is the Cleveland Browns. People forget we've got 6 championships. We're one of the original football teams. I mean, this is a team that has a lot of history. It's just a matter of time of getting the right people in place. And I hope the Steelers go into a 20, 30 year, drought where they can't figure it out, because it's ridiculous the amount of just stuff that they spew out. And it's the same thing with the Ravens. I mean, it hurts to see an Art Modell team to do that. But then again, the Bengals, none of these teams are in front of us right now. The only team that we should be worried about are the teams we could play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's it.
Yep. Well said, Zach.
But Noah, thank you for stopping in with us. We appreciate you. Anytime you hop on, you're always welcome in. Anytime. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. You're always great on the show.
Yeah.
And as always, go Browns!
Go Browns.
Go
Happy
Browns.
New Year too.